I'm Shawn Thompson. I'm the Finance Director for Northern California, SBDC, and I think I know most of the people that are on right now. And thank you for joining. And I just wanted to make sure I'm sharing the screen. I'm hoping I'm sharing a PowerPoint right now. If I could get a yes or no from someone. Okay, I'm seeing Kristen saying, is that a yes? Okay, thank you. I'm just always not sure about technology. So um, I think everyone knows the protocol of please stay muted so we don't get weird background noise, and then feel free to unmute yourself if you do have a question. And I'll have some pause times where we can ask questions as we go through. And please don't feel shy about asking questions, because that's the whole purpose of this, is for you to have some time to think about this and speak up if you need to, and feel comfortable with this process, and to provide training for people who haven't done this before. So, all right, we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so I just wanted to mention that there is a fiscal, okay, how is this working here? This is going faster than I am. Hold on. All right. So in reality, we're always doing desk reviews. Every single time you turn in a quarterly invoice, that's what we're doing, and that's what's happening right now with closeout. Is we're going through, we're doing looking at your final invoices, which is the one that is looked at mostly by SBA when they do an audit, your year-end invoice, and making sure that it's as perfect as we can get it. And so that is happening quarterly throughout the year. And then in addition, we do some additional compliance visits at the end of the year to see how the whole contract period went. Having some weird issues with the slides here. Hold on a second. Okay. Okay, so one of the things we're reviewing is general ledger detail, and we have the discretion to be asking for any additional support documentation we want to at the time of doing those quarterly reviews at the lead center. And that's something we can always do. So that's just something to know and to be aware of. And then new service centers and centers that are deemed to be high risk end up being on full support documentation. And that isn't forever and ever, but that's at the beginning until we get used to the procedures and policies at those host centers, and they get used to our policies and procedures that we require. So it's just kind of, it's usually for about a year is what's required. And so we're in this closeout period for the grant, which is January through February. And the lead center is going to be sending out a request for documents. We're a little bit behind schedule on that. And those will be submitted electronically for review, and that'll be prior to the site visit. And we'll be reviewing those documents at the lead center, starting to draft the year-end fiscal review report, and then we'll review and discuss that information on site with the service center director, staff, and accounting staff for the host. And oftentimes that's sometimes the only time during the year that all those players are in the same room, maybe, and we can troubleshoot any concerns or discuss best practices, etc. And before we go into the site visit part, I want to say something about something that's going to change for this year. In past years, I've visited every single center for fiscal reviews, and that was when we had 13 centers. Now we have 20 centers, and 6 of them are new to our region. So I'm going to be altering how we normally have done things for 2018 and be focusing effort on how do we move forward in a path that's focusing on best practices and getting everyone onboarded the best and the most efficient way. We've also had 3 people in my fiscal department at the lead center that have transitioned, and so we have 3 new staff here that are learning how things work. So just having to rethink how this is going to work for this year. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be asking the Northwest centers, or the formerly Northwest centers, to be submitting an abbreviated desk review and submitting those documents to Dropbox. And then the Northeast centers to be submitting, we're going to be doing a full site visit for them. So that's going to be the change. And it's still helpful if you are on the Northwest side to listen, because we are going to go through the document requests and you will be submitting portions of that document request. And then we'll get back on track for 2019. The real focus needs to be on 2019 being as good as possible and as clean as possible, because the review of 2019 is going to be a financial examiner from Washington, D.C. coming out and doing an on-site visit for a week in our region. And just with recently blending our region, and we've had transition in Solano, San Mateo. We're going to have transition in Santa Cruz. I'm really wanting to have 2019 about getting everyone on the same page and getting consistency throughout the region. So I'm hoping that makes sense to people. So the Northeast site visits are scheduled for April and June. If you look at the region calendar, I think San Joaquin and Butte are in June on either side of the region meeting that's scheduled then, and then the Sierra, Siskiyou, and Sacramento are scheduled in June. And Kathleen Whiteside, the person who's been helping with compliance, who's on the faculty at HSU, will be coming to the visits in June. So why don't I stop and just pause if there's any questions about that, because that's kind of a lot of different information.
Shawn, I was a little confused. What
Yeah.
What is scheduled for June again?
Not your site visit, Sophie.
Okay.
Kristen's site visit, for example.
Oh, I think it was just an error that you said. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, Butte and San Joaquin, the community colleges, are in April.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, any other questions?
You don't want to get snowed in again?
Yeah, that was fun, like trying to,
I
almost spent the weekend in Tahoe in, what was it, March or something like that, when we're doing onboarding visits. So yeah, it's hard to figure out timing. You guys might still have snow in June this year.
Oh, we will. Yeah. And I have, oh wait, I think I have 3 dates. Oh, never mind. I forgot I'm here. Siskiyou. Okay, so June 18th.
Okay.
Is ours. Okay, great.
And normally how it works is that I'll meet, well, and it works differently with different people, but especially for Northeast centers, I think it's really helpful to have the accounting staff there for as much of the time as they can be, because it's new. I mean, I know some of you have been hosting SBDCs for years now, but lead center stuff is, I think, quite a bit different that you've seen from how your old host was. So just making sure that we get on the same page and that 2019 is going to be the best it can be, because I'm sure that the Northeast one's sites will be chosen quite a bit by the SBA examiner, I'm going to guess, that when he's going through and deciding who he thinks is high risk, centers that are in transition, have had key personnel changes, those are ways they make those decisions. So, okay, so back to the presentation. So for on-site visits, normally they take place March through May. This year it's altering slightly. And the lead center will meet with the service center director as well as the accounting staff and discuss questions related to the prior year's operations, challenges, financial reporting, and management. And review and discuss fiscal report questions. And before we go to this, I'm just going to go over and share a different screen with you. Let's see. All right. Is that new share? Okay.
No.
Hey,
Okay.
Shawn, this is Tanya. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to go back to this question because I know you were trying to move on.
Oh, it's okay.
But we have SBA accreditation appointment in Reading on June 20th. You're talking about our fiscal review being on the same day?
Oh, okay. I'll check that date. Maybe we need to switch that around. I was trying to not double book things, but maybe we got our wires crossed over here. So I'll make a note on that and double check. So, and what was the other appointment?
We're supposed to meet at the Reading site for the accreditation interview on the 20th. That was announced at our meeting in Stockton.
Oh, Reading for accreditation.
Aren't those in May? I think those are in May, though.
Oh, are we? Maybe you're right. Well, see, that's why we're clearing this up.
Yeah, it does sound kind of familiar that it might be May, but
Kristen, you're right.
Okay, all right. Well, that makes it easy.
Okay, you can mute us again, Shawn.
Okay, all right.
I've been right once today. That's good. I can stop now.
Okay, so this is the checklist of financial site visit documents that we would like to be uploaded to Dropbox. And these are the same that were shared for the Northeast side when I was there for an orientation visit in the spring of last year. I can't believe it's been a whole year already. And so we'll just kind of go through these, make sure you're familiar with them. I'm hoping that 2.5 weeks would be enough time. If that's a hardship, we can talk about it. I'm trying to, I know some of you still have outstanding invoices that we're, trying to get to a finalized point on. And then we want to turn around and just get all this done before we start processing the first quarterly invoice for 2019 again. So there's just kind of this window that we want to try to address the fiscal review stuff before we need to proceed to 2019. It's just pretty tight. All right, so the first items are dealing with prior year reviews and audits. So most recent SBDC financial review, which for Northeast centers, if you have one from your prior host, that would be interesting to see, but it might not be applicable. Most recent host external independent audit report, I believe you're turning those in to William. So either you can, if you already have one and it's easy to just put it in Dropbox, that's great, or William and I can coordinate about that. And William is the compliance officer for sponsored programs, by the way. And address of facilities. So especially as we're, and this will be for looking at 2018. So just because we are starting to expand in 2019 and have other facilities for satellites and things like that. But just think of 2018, what were your addresses for where you have any satellites or outreach locations? Organizational chart through host reporting responsibilities and titles, chart of accounts, and so that's, where do you charge, what accounts would you have for personnel, fringe benefits, travel, and service center SBDC policies and procedure manuals. If there's anything specific to your service center, or just your host policies and procedures if there's not anything specific to the service center. Some things that would be specific would be the lead center asks you to have a Neosera user agreement policy, so that one should be in there. Then it's conflict of interest, the lead center asks for that. Program income, that might be something that would only be specific to the service center, I'm not sure. And then the SBDC budget, discussing that, list of individuals with check signing authority, who can sign the checks for the host organization, and who can approve SBDC related expenses. General ledger detail, for a full fiscal year or calendar year, and list of periodic financial management reports reviewed by the director, which might be like budget to actuals, things like that. Year-end allocation procedures, verification of expenditures, list of account cost center numbers assigned for the calendar year. So that would mean if you have CIP money, this from the state, the TAPE money, and SBA money, and then local cost match, how do you segregate those funds in your bookkeeping system? And so if you segregate them 4 different ways, and then there's program income too, but then now you're going to get a new grant awarded for 2019 SBDC, and you're going to get a new grant awarded for CIP in the fall and for TAPE. And so then you should be having another way to segregate those new grants that are coming. So they should be segregated for each specific award that's issued each year. Is there any questions about that part? Quarterly invoicing policies and compliance, that's something we can discuss on site. Expense processing and procedures, again, this is sort of talking through what are your processes and are they being followed consistently. If you have program income, list of program income balances from the prior year, and can they be reconciled in the general ledger? because program income is a fund that carries over year. And so we need to be able to follow that balance and make sure it's just only being used for SBDC purposes. List of training classes provided and program income trainings. And I will be asking for 2 training files that will be tested from November. I think actually I'm going to pick a different month. I'm going to say that was from last year actually. So let's just say July, but I'll send this out later. And copy of indirect rate letter, and we'll talk about that. And record retention, discuss policies and practices on site. So that'll just be a discussion. And then the director can say any comments or concerns about HSU or the lead center, the SBDC program in general, that would like to be communicated back to SBA. And then there's a category for cash match. It's a summary of cash match claimed for the calendar year, which that's part of the invoice packet actually, that we'll just look at that and then discuss the sources of funds. It lists the general ledger number and the amount claimed. So you have that from your invoice packet. And then I want to see the contracts or the written agreements that would go along with all of that cost match. So if you had listed, CIP money and then 3 different local contracts, to see those contracts. And then 14 would be a sample financial data review, and we'll be providing that. And then personnel, that a list of the employees for the calendar year, a list of amounts paid to each employee for the calendar year, the rate of pay. And so we're going to be asking for a transaction sample for the final quarter of the year, October through December. For employee business advisors, provide NeoSera reports that show that their hours were entered. And the time cards must clearly identify SBDC projects, and only those SBDC projects can use SBDC funds or matching funds. If you don't do time cards or levels of effort, if you don't do time cards, then levels of effort can be what's counted. So for community colleges, sometimes there's not a time card that's completed every single month, and you just turn in an absence report. And so then you would complete a letter of effort. For fringe, host policies and procedures should be provided, or a rate sheet that shows how fringe is calculated. And for travel requests and claims for the director should be provided. And any additional sample transactions requested. And equipment list for 2018. And just making a note. Can someone tell me if that was requested with your final annual report, or do we need to get that out to you for an equipment list? Does that sound familiar or not? No, okay. Make a note. And
Are you talking about 2018 with NorCal?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Okay.
It didn't go out. Okay, so I'll get that out. And supplies, so anything that's part of the transaction sample that we request, then submit that. And then contractual, list of contractors and consultants for the calendar year. List of amounts paid to each consultant for the calendar year. list of vendors, including consultants with cumulative spending over $5,000, attach supporting documentation showing that the host's purchasing rules were adhered to, and submit transaction samples and include NeoSera report that shows hours entered for business advisors and trainers. And the last part is facilities. So a lease, blueprint, square footage claimed for SBDC purposes, and a market rate comparison if facilities were claimed. So the good news for 3 of you is that if you submitted full backup for the year, then a lot of this, like the transaction samples, you already submitted. So that helps. If you are not on full backup, then you do need to pull transaction samples or travel requests. So I'll go through, and for people who are on full backup, put a note by things that say already provided, and try to make this clearer. Any questions about that?
Shawn, will you be sending us this list?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna send out an email after this presentation, kind of, once we've clarified, like, oh, I need to send you an equipment list. Oh, I should probably clarify for people on full backup what they, don't need to provide, and then I'll get that out to you.
Okay, and some of those examples that you were given in the different line items, can you include some of them?
Sure. Like which?
For example, let's see. Conflict of interest. Where you were talking about user agreement for policy and conflict of interest.
Oh, okay.
It's not specified there, but we have it. But I want to know where it's.
Okay.
To give an example.
So,
yeah.
Okay, I'll just put a note to clarify. Give examples. Okay. All right. Yeah. Anything else? Okay. All right. Go back to this. So the last piece is that I wanted to share with you kind of the top 10 findings that when SBA comes out and they're looking for financial examinations, what they come across. And this is at the regional or lead center level, though. So I just need to kind of understand that these would be findings that would be for us at the lead center. And these are some of the reasons we do such heavy monitoring, is so that we don't get these findings, because it all kind of rolls up to us. All right, these are the mistakes that examiners find. So one of them, the amount of indirect costs reimbursed by federal funds, $50,000, exceeds the amount authorized on the notice of award. So we get a master contract notice of award, which we just got recently, and that says some people are taking cash on their SBA money. And so if you're taking like 4% cash or something on your SBA money, then that's been pre-approved. But if we don't get the math right, or everyone has these different indirect rate agreements. So some indirect rate agreements for community colleges will say, you can only count this calculation on salary and wages, or you have to exclude facilities, or these different things. So if we don't get the math exactly right, what can happen is there can be a difference of, in this case, $10,000 that cannot be paid with federal funds, and it's disallowed. And the requirement is that the SBDC would have to remit, in this case, $10,000 of federal funds back to SBA. So that sponsored programs, our host would have to write a check back to SBA, which we would never want to be in that position. So that's where it's like, even when it's cents or all these things, we just are not wanting to cause problems. And once SBA finds one thing, they're like, well, what else are you doing wrong? I mean, if you're doing this wrong, what else are you doing wrong? All right, next one, the amount of waived indirect. So kind of, you can take cash indirect on the funds, and then the rest of it is waived indirect. $500,000 exceeded the amount of non-federal funds authorized for indirect cost on the notice of award, which is $400,000. So $100,000 is disallowed as an expense of non-federal funds. And so before taking any of the following actions, you must obtain advance approval from SBA following the amount claimed for indirect costs in excess of the approved budget. So even for indirect, which is this kind of in-kind amount, we can't claim over. And so that's where budget modifications are so critical, is we want to know how much cost match we have, but if we're too conservative and then at the end of the year say, oh, surprise, we have extra, it can mean that every time you spend $1 of cost match, you increase your waived indirect. And all those are positive things, except if they're unplanned, because then SBA won't allow them because they'll be outside the bounds of, our larger 10% discretion of variance. And so that's where we count on our service centers and us to be submitting good budget modifications so that our master budget is on track. Okay. The reimbursement invoices for an SBDC service center did not reconcile to the general ledgers. So this is what we're always, ensuring happens, hopefully, when we're turning in the quarterly invoices. Recipient's financial management system shall provide for accurate, current, and complete disclosure of the financial results of each federally sponsored project or program. And that in this case, whichever center had this finding, that the lead center should be requiring the SBDC service centers to enhance their financial reporting system. Program income funds were diverted from the SBDC program for non-SBDC activities or expenses. Recipient's financial management system shall provide for accurate, current, complete disclosure of financial results for each federally sponsored project or program. So ensuring that program income is just kept separate, it's not commingled, and that it's only for SBDC related items. And that there's control over accountability, and that they weren't safeguarding. And lead center must provide evidence that the service center has replenished the program income account in the amount of the disallowed expenditures, as well as ensure that safeguards have been installed to prevent this from occurring again. The daily timesheet that was used for time and effort reporting only records time worked in support of the SBDC program. The employees who allocate their time to other programs do not record 100% of their time on the SBDC daily timesheet. So this is that you need to report total activity for which employees are compensated and which is required for the SBDC program. So you're not just, it's kind of like keeping a bookkeeping system, but just keeping a partial bookkeeping system. It's not, you need to show all the employees' activity, all of your, to show what portion is SBDC versus what portion is other parts. So SBDC network develops and implements a process to record 100% of employee time. And the required financial reports were not submitted within the specified dates. Reports must be submitted to SBA project officer via email, received no later than 30 days after the conclusion of the reporting period, and final reporting no later than 90 days. So this is where it's kind of the push of we need to get invoices in, we need to get them done. And so the lead center would have to develop processes to ensure that reporting requirements meet specified dates. And a review of time and effort for employees at the lead center and selected service centers. This is from 2012. Time and effort certification documents reviewed were dated June 2013, indicating they were certified after the fact, not 2012, when they should have been certified. So timeliness of having a time and effort policy, that it doesn't seem reasonable that you would remember in June of 2013 what portion of your time you worked on which grants for the whole last year. And, you know, it's just most likely that, oh shoot, my, you know, site visit's coming up and I better finish this piece of paperwork. And so you need to be having a process that you're following. A review of transactions from the general ledger of the SBDC revealed expenses of $1,000 for food and catering for grand opening, open house of a service center. $1,000 is disallowed from cash match. I've seen this several times, and so just being careful about this one, especially for some of our new centers, Alameda, Solano. This paying attention here, I'm hoping. That you might be doing this, but you can't count it even as cash match on invoices. Unallowable advertising and public relations costs include the following: costs of meetings, conventions, convocations, or other events related to other activities of the nonprofit organization. The SBDC review cost principles. The examiner, so next one, the examiner disallowed $10,000 of revenue credited to the program income account. Revenue is earned income specifically generated for the conduct of project activities per the program announcement. These funds appear to be donations to the service center and not specifically earned income. So program income is just collecting client fees. It's if there is someone who, let's say the Humboldt County Chamber of Commerce, I'm just making something up, or some organization donates money to put towards a training, that would be a donation, and it can be used as cash match. But it wouldn't be program income. All right, and the last one, a review of transactions from the general ledger of the lead center revealed expenses of $2,000 for polo shirts. $1,500 is disallowed from cash match and $500 from federal funds. This expense required prior written approval from the program manager. Costs of goods or services for personal use of the organization's employees are unallowed regardless of whether the cost is reported as taxable income to the employees. So in rare circumstances, we can get prior approval from a program manager to do something. The one thing I'm thinking of is there was a state conference a couple years ago, and I think we handed out trophies or something that we made really clear that we were getting approval, and we had it. It was questioned in a site visit, and we almost got written up for it. But Kristen Johnson, our director, was able to find that approval, and we got off. But we just need to be really careful with those types of things, and it's probably better to just charge it to a trust that's for disallowed expenses. So that is it, and I can open it up to questions that you might have about any of this. Alrighty. Well, thank you for your time. If there aren't any questions. Okay, and just please feel free to follow up with me as you're going through preparing for the fiscal site visit, and I'll be getting emails out, I think tomorrow. I think we'll have everything together tomorrow or Friday.
So Shanna, I have a question.
Yeah.
Say, for example, for things that you have that haven't changed, say the last time when you were doing the site visit,
Yeah.
you asked for, oh, Jesus, now I forgot.
Like
You asked the chart of accounts, for example.
Yeah.
And we provided you the chart of accounts, and that has not changed.
Okay.
Would you still, so if it's not changed, can we make a note that you have it, it hasn't changed, or would you still need us to send it again?
No, that's fine. You could say that it was provided at the
Okay.
at the orientation, and that should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, well, thank you so much for attending. And if there's anyone I've left off of emails about these that you want to be notified, please let me know that too. So I'm including whoever I should be. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.